Today I'm going to show you a 2017 action thriller film titled Revenge. Be ready for spoilers ahead. The film kicks off with a landing helicopter carrying a man named Richard and his girlfriend, Jennifer. They plan to spend some time together at Richard's remote desert house before Richard embarks on his annual hunting trip with his friends. As the pilot prepares to depart, he hands Richard a small package of powder as a welcome gift for his guests. The alluring Jennifer, whose presence seems to embody the desires of any man, greets Richard once he enters the house. The two quickly succumb to their passion, engaging in a heated encounter. Later that day, Richard receives a phone call from a woman, revealing that he is in fact married with children. Richard's wife assumes he's simply heading to the desert for a hunting trip, leading to a smooth conversation. The following morning, Jennifer, clad only in her underwear, heads to the kitchen for some water. She's startled by the unexpected arrival of Richard's friends, Stan and Dimitri, who have shown up a day earlier than planned. Richard is visibly annoyed by their premature arrival, as he had intended to keep his relationship with Jennifer a secret. Despite his frustration, Richard is forced to let them stay. During the introductions, it becomes evident that Stan is particularly captivated by Jennifer's appearance. As night falls, the group gathers by the pool, soaking in the breathtaking desert scenery. Dimitri, occupied with his binoculars, takes an interest in the gift the pilot had given Richard. Richard explains that the item is a powerful hallucinogenic product, potent enough to incapacitate an entire football team. He recounts a story of someone who, under its influence, sawed off his own leg without feeling any pain. To avoid any disputes over the product, Richard instructs Jennifer to store it safely. However, her curiosity prompts Jennifer to conceal it in her necklace instead of securing it. Later, Jennifer steps outside and begins a seductive dance, entertaining the men with her sensual moves. She transforms into the center of attention, particularly for Stan, who is entranced by her and eagerly joins her in the dance. Stan greets Jennifer, who has just woken up, the next day and invites her to join him for breakfast. Richard is not at home, giving Stan the opportunity to make a move on Jennifer. However, his attempts are met with cold indifference as Jennifer ignores him and abruptly returns to her room. Undeterred, Stan follows her, trying to engage her further. With a disappointed tone, he asks why Jennifer is avoiding him, especially since he thought she had shown interest in him the night before. Jennifer responds bluntly, telling Stan that he is not her type, particularly due to his short stature. Feeling offended and humiliated, Stan's frustration escalates into anger, and his uncontrollable lust propels him to force himself on her. Terrified, Jennifer can only submit to his assault. Moments later, Dimitri enters the room, but instead of intervening, he silently watches his friend's despicable act. Choosing not to get involved, Dimitri turns on the TV in the other room, increasing the volume to drown out Jennifer's cries. Hours later, Richard returns to the house and senses an unusually quiet atmosphere. Stan vaguely mentions that there has been a slight problem with Jennifer but doesn't elaborate. When Richard goes to see Jennifer, she tearfully demands that he call the helicopter immediately so she can leave. Realizing what has likely transpired, Richard steps out and angrily scolds his friends, but his reprimand is half-hearted. When Jennifer wakes up again, she insists on going home immediately. Richard tries to placate her by saying that his friends will come and apologize, and he even offers her a hefty sum to forget the entire ordeal. However, Jennifer, unable to contain her emotions any longer, threatens to expose their affair to Richard's wife if he doesn't arrange for her immediate departure. Fearing the consequences, Richard's anger boils over, frightening Jennifer into fleeing the house. As she runs, Richard and his friends chase after her. Jennifer's escape halts when she reaches the edge of a cliff, realizing there's nowhere left to go. Richard and his friends catch up to her, cornering her at the precipice. Richard, in a desperate attempt to regain control, feigns regret and assures her that he will call the pilot to take her home. Calmed by his words, Jennifer momentarily believes her nightmare is over until Richard suddenly pushes her off the cliff. She falls, impaled on a tree, as she plunges to her death. Stan and Dimitri are shocked, never expecting Richard to have the nerve to commit such a brutal act. Richard coldly explains that they would all be in danger if they had let Jennifer go, as their actions could lead to a 15-year prison sentence. Moreover, Richard is determined to keep his affair a secret from his wife no matter the cost. Afterward, Richard and his friends return to the house to retrieve their hunting equipment, planning to come back later to clean up any evidence of the murder before continuing their hunting trip as if nothing had happened. The scene then shifts to Jennifer, impaled but still clinging to life. It's astonishing that she has survived, likely because the tree branch missed her vital organs. Jennifer struggles to free herself and notices the lighter she always carries. Gathering every ounce of strength, Jennifer manages to grab the lighter. She uses it to ignite the dry shrub, which breaks, allowing her to escape though the branch remains lodged in her body. Meanwhile, Richard and his friends are on their way to her location to dispose of her body. Fortunately, Jennifer hears the sound of their approaching vehicle and quickly moves from the spot. Although the branch impaling her makes it excruciatingly difficult to move, she manages to hide just in time. When Richard and his friends arrive, they are shocked to discover that Jennifer is no longer there. They conjecture that she either received rescue or made her own escape. Determined to find her, the three men decide to find a way down the cliff to confirm Jennifer's whereabouts. Hearing them leave, Jennifer seizes the opportunity to move farther from the area. However, the path to descend the cliff is long, and by the time the men reach the spot, the night has fallen. They're baffled by how Jennifer could have simply vanished. However, they discover traces of her blood and immediately follow the trail. The blood trail leads them to a lake, where it suddenly stops, leaving them at a standstill. The men decide to split up to search for Jennifer, but Stan, secretly harboring fear, opts to stay behind in the car just in case she returns. Meanwhile, Jennifer, despite losing a lot of blood, continues to push forward with whatever strength she has left. From a distance, she hears the sound of a vehicle searching for her, and in her panic, she spots Dmitry approaching on a quad bike. Thankfully, he doesn't see her and drives away. Jennifer has been hiding underwater, holding her breath to avoid detection. Once she reaches the shore, she finds Dmitry nearby. Seeing that he has left his rifle next to his vehicle, Jennifer seizes the opportunity. Dmitry, realizing he's been caught off guard, tries to calm Jennifer, who is now determined to kill him. But as it turns out, Dmitry had set a trap, leaving the unloaded rifle on the ground as bait. Dmitry quickly informs Richard and Stan of Jennifer's presence, but decides he wants to toy with her first before turning her over. Fortunately, Jennifer manages to grab the knife from Dmitry's pocket and stab him, killing him and leaving his body in the lake. Jennifer takes Dmitry's equipment and continues her escape. Unfortunately, the quad bike runs out of gas, forcing her to continue on foot with the branch still embedded in her stomach. She soon comes across a cave and decides to rest for the moment. Her wounds are severe and difficult to treat, causing her immense pain. As she gazes at the necklace she's wearing, Jennifer suddenly remembers the product she had hidden earlier. Recalling the potent effects of the product, and despite its awful taste, she consumes it without hesitation, hoping it will help her endure the pain. Soon after, Jennifer begins to feel the powerful effects of the hallucinogen. She starts hearing voices and experiencing intense hallucinations. In a semi-conscious state, she prepares to treat her wound. After successfully removing the branch from her stomach, she heats the tin of a drink and presses it against the wound to cauterize it and stop the bleeding. The next day, Stan was still asleep in the Jeep. Richard, having failed to find Jennifer, throws a dead animal at the vehicle in frustration. When Stan wakes up and heads to the lake to wash his face, he is horrified to discover Dmitry's lifeless body emerging from the water. Unlike Stan, Richard keeps his emotions in check, though he silently seethes at the loss of his friend. With no other option, they dispose of Dmitry's body in the lake. Richard, furious, lashes out at Stan, blaming him for not accompanying Dmitry. Both leave the area, contemplating their next move to find Jennifer. The scene returns to Jen, who is now recovered from her wounds. Equipped with her rifle, she swiftly exits the cave, only to find herself in yet another nightmare, a consequence of the product's persistent effects. As Jen fully regains consciousness, she prepares herself to exact the painful retribution. Fueled by unstoppable rage and armed with a shotgun, Jen begins her hunt for Richard and Stan in the vast desert. Meanwhile, Richard and Stan have found the quad bike Jen had taken and decide to split up to cover more ground. Richard leaves first, while Stan, still nursing his injured nose, checks his reflection in a mirror. Unbeknownst to him, the reflection gives away his position to Jen. Despite being barefoot and still injured, Jen stealthily follows Stan. After driving around the desert for some distance, Stan's car starts to run low on gas. Seizing the opportunity, Jen takes aim with her weapon, but due to lack of experience, the bullet only grazes Stan's shoulder, causing him to scream in pain. When Jen gets back on her feet, she notices that Stan has vanished. However, she follows the trail of blood he left behind, determined to track him down. Meanwhile, Stan, already wounded, attempts to stop the bleeding by using socks. Jen continues to follow the blood trail, but it abruptly ends when she finds only his discarded shoe. Hiding nearby, Stan loads his weapon, preparing to ambush Jen. However, the injury to his shoulder makes aiming difficult, and when he finally takes a shot, it only grazes Jen's ear. Startled and injured, Jen runs, while Stan continues firing at her repeatedly. In the midst of the hot chase, Jen uses shards of torchlight to slow Stan down. The glass shards prove effective, injuring Stan's feet and leaving him struggling to remove them. Unable to run any longer, Stan limps back to his car to continue the chase. The severe wound in his leg makes it difficult to press the accelerator, but his rage drives him to ignore the pain. Ultimately, Jen successfully eliminates the man who had previously attacked her, bringing a brutal conclusion to their deadly chase. After dealing with Stan, Jen hears Richard's voice crackling through Stan's walkie-talkie. Hearing the voice of the man who orchestrated her ordeal fuels her rage even further. Meanwhile, Richard is growing increasingly frustrated, unable to locate Jen, and concerned that Stan hasn't shown up at their designated meeting point. Stan's silence on the walkie-talkie only heightens Richard's anxiety. Exhausted and annoyed, Richard decides to head back to his house. Richard arrives home visibly stressed by the situation. He realizes that Jen must have killed Stan and now plans to leave the desert by contacting a helicopter pilot to evacuate him. As he gets ready to depart and clean himself up, a suspicious noise abruptly catches his attention. Despite being completely naked, he checks the house, fearing that Jen has already arrived to kill him. However, he finds nothing unusual inside or outside. Just as Richard begins to relax, the sudden sound of the TV startles him, and his fear becomes a reality. Jen is indeed there, ready to exact her final revenge. Jen surprises Richard by aiming her shotgun at him, striking him in the stomach. Though severely wounded, Richard forces himself to hide, but Jen relentlessly pursues him. Ultimately, they both face each other in the corridor. Seizing the opportunity, Jen fires the fatal shot that ends Richard's life. Jen, bloodied but victorious, steps outside savoring her hard-fought triumph, and as she turns around, she hears the distant sound of a helicopter approaching, signaling the end of her brutal ordeal and the beginning of her new life. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.